First contact. The California sun beat down mercilessly on the Edwards Air Force Base tarmac as General James Maddow adjusted his collar for the 10th time. 30 years of military service hadn't prepared him for this moment, humanity's first official contact with an alien civilization. Behind him stood the finest collection of Earth's military minds, representatives from every branch of service, including an elite contingent of Navy SEALs led by Captain Ryan "Bulldog" Briggs. The message had arrived 3 weeks ago, transmitted directly into every major military communication system worldwide. The Zerian Empire, a spacefaring civilization from the Arcturus system, requested a formal evaluation of Earth's military capabilities. Not a threat, they had insisted, but an assessment of humanity's potential as future allies, or so they claimed. "Sir," Captain Briggs muttered, his massive frame casting a shadow that rivaled the flag pole beside them, "I don't like this. They're too confident, too casual about making first contact." Maddow nodded imperceptibly. "Keep those thoughts to yourself, Captain. For now, we play nice." The air shifted first, a subtle change in pressure that made ears pop and hair stand on end. Then came the ship, materializing from what appeared to be a fold in space itself. It descended with impossible grace for its size, a gleaming vessel that resembled a massive teardrop carved from crystal and chrome. Commander V emerged first, his elongated figure moving with fluid grace that seemed almost serpentine. His skin had a metallic sheen that shifted colors with each movement, and his eyes, 3 of them, gleamed with an intelligence that seemed to strip away all pretense. Lieutenant Zarl and Cadet Grizz followed, each carrying themselves with the distinctive bearing of career military officers, despite their alien appearance. "Welcome to Earth," General Maddow stepped forward, his voice carrying across the tarmac. "I trust your journey was comfortable." Commander V's lipless mouth curved in what might have been amusement. "Your atmosphere is quaint. Rather thick for our tastes, but we've adjusted our environmental suits accordingly." He gestured to the barely visible shimmer around their bodies. "I must say, General, your species has progressed remarkably well, given your limitations." Behind Maddow, Captain Briggs clenched his jaw. Sergeant Blake Harrow, his second in command, placed a warning hand on his shoulder. "Perhaps," Maddow replied diplomatically, "you'd care to elaborate on the purpose of your visit? Your message mentioned an evaluation of our military capabilities." Commander V's 3 eyes blinked in sequence. "Yes, quite. The Zerian Empire spans 17 solar systems, General. We've encountered numerous species, some peaceful, others, less so. In our experience, the best way to understand a species' potential is to evaluate their warriors." He paused, his gaze sweeping across the assembled humans. "Your species intrigues us. Despite your technological inadequacies, you've displayed remarkable tenacity in your historical conflicts." Cadet Grizz stepped forward, his younger, more impulsive nature showing through. "Our research indicates your elite warriors undergo something called SEAL training. We'd like to experience this firsthand." A murmur ran through the assembled military personnel. Captain Briggs couldn't suppress his smirk. "You want to go through BUD/S? All 3 of you? BUD/S?" Lieutenant Zarl queried, his translator struggling with the acronym. "Basic Underwater Demolition/SEAL Training," Briggs explained, stepping forward. 24 weeks of the most brutal military training on Earth. Most human candidates don't make it through." Commander V's skin rippled with colors that suggested amusement. "You misunderstand, Captain. We don't wish to simply observe. We want to participate." General Maddow exchanged glances with his staff. This was unprecedented, but it also presented an opportunity. The Zerians clearly expected to dominate any physical challenge humans could devise. Their overconfidence might just work in Earth's favor. "Very well," Maddow declared. "Captain Briggs will oversee your training personally. However, you should understand, we won't modify our standards. You'll be expected to perform exactly as human candidates do." Naturally, Commander V agreed. Though I should warn you, our species has evolved beyond many physical limitations. Our neural enhancement implants alone make us significantly superior to human baseline capabilities. Briggs stepped forward, his 6 feet 4 inches frame towering over even the tall Zerians. With all due respect, Commander, Bud/S isn't about capability. It's about heart. About continuing when your body screams to stop. About putting the team before yourself. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Report to Naval Amphibious Base Coronado at 0500 tomorrow. We'll see what your neural enhancements are worth in the mud. As the aliens departed to prepare, Sergeant Harrow approached Briggs. Think they have any idea what they're in for? Briggs watched the alien ship lift off, its crystalline surface catching the sunlight. No. And that's exactly what I'm counting on. He turned to his team. Get Instructor Ramirez on the phone. Tell him to prepare Hell Week. We're going to show our galactic friends what humans are really capable of. Back on their ship, Commander V reviewed the historical footage of SEAL training they'd gathered. Primitive endurance exercises, he commented to his companions. Nothing our enhanced physiology can't handle. Lieutenant Zarl looked less certain. Sir, I've been analyzing their psychological profiles. These humans, they seem to draw strength from adversity in ways our simulations can't quite explain. Nonsense, Cadet Grizz scoffed, his youthful arrogance showing. They're barely space capable. What could they possibly teach us about warfare? Commander V's skin shifted to a deep blue of contemplation. We shall see, Cadet. Tomorrow, we begin to understand why the Council considers Earth a potential asset despite their technological inferiority. He turned to his companions, his expression unreadable. Remember, this isn't just about physical performance. The Council wants to know if humans have what we lack, that indefinable quality that makes them fight on when logic dictates surrender. As night fell over the Pacific coast, 2 very different groups prepared for the coming day. In the alien ship, the Zerians calibrated their environmental suits and reviewed human military protocols. At Naval Amphibious Base Coronado, Captain Briggs gathered his instructors for a very special briefing. Ladies and gentlemen, he addressed the seasoned SEAL instructors, tomorrow we're making history. Our visitors think they're here to evaluate us. He smiled grimly. Let's show them what humans are made of. The first stars appeared over the base, twinkling with indifference to the drama unfolding below. Tomorrow, the games would begin, and both species would learn lessons they never expected. First week of training. The pre-dawn air at Naval Amphibious Base Coronado carried a bitter chill that even the Zerians' environmental suits couldn't fully neutralize. Commander V, Lieutenant Zarl, and Cadet Grizz stood among 30 human candidates, their metallic skin reflecting the dim light of the base's floodlamps. Captain Briggs paced before them, his boots crunching on the gravel. Gentlemen, welcome to first phase. For the next 8 weeks, we'll discover who among you has what it takes to become a Navy SEAL. His eyes lingered on the aliens. Your advanced technology stays in your quarters. This is about raw capability. Commander V's skin rippled with what humans had come to recognize as irritation. Surely you don't expect us to deactivate our neural enhancements. They're as much a part of us as your primitive nervous system is to you. Keep them, Briggs smiled. You'll need every advantage you can get. The first evolution began with a simple 4-mile run on the beach. The Zerians took off at an impressive pace, their enhanced physiology allowing them to maintain speed that would exhaust most humans. But Briggs had positioned his best instructors, former SEALs who'd been training candidates for years, to set a punishing pace. Looking good, Commander, Instructor Ramirez called out as he effortlessly passed the alien leader. But we're just warming up. By mile 2, the Zerians discovered something their detailed studies hadn't revealed: wet sand was treacherous. Their perfectly calculated movements, optimized for efficiency, worked against them as the terrain shifted unpredictably beneath their feet. Cadet Grizz was the first to falter, his long legs sinking deeper than anticipated with each stride. "This is inefficient," he complained through their private communication channel. "Our energy expenditure is 47% higher than calculated." Lieutenant Zarl, maintaining better form, responded tersely. "Adapt. The humans aren't slowing." Commander V watched with growing concern as several human candidates passed them, their faces showing exertion but also grim determination. These weren't the elite warriors, these were merely candidates, yet they moved through the challenging terrain with practiced ease. The run was followed immediately by 2 hours of calisthenics in the surf zone. The instructors called it getting wet and sandy. The Zerians quickly learned why. "Down!" Instructor Martinez bellowed. "Roll left. Roll right. Back in the water." The cold Pacific waves crashed over them as they performed push-ups, their bodies covered in coarse sand that worked its way into every joint of their environmental suits. The Zerians' superior strength meant nothing when every movement required fighting against water, sand, and their own increasingly waterlogged equipment. "Our filtration systems are clogging," Lieutenant Zarl reported, his usually pristine silver-blue sheen now a dull gray. "The sand particles are too numerous to process efficiently." Commander V, maintaining his dignity despite being covered in sand, made a mental note. Human training methods seemed designed specifically to neutralize technological advantages. Interesting. The morning culminated in what the instructors called the grinder, a series of brutal circuit exercises performed on an asphalt parking lot under the now blazing California sun. The Zerians' environmental suits, struggling to maintain optimal temperature against the combined threats of exertion and solar radiation, began to tax their energy reserves. During a brief water break, Cadet Grizz approached Commander V. "Sir, this is beneath us. These exercises are designed for their limited physical capabilities, not ours." Before V could respond, Instructor Ramirez appeared beside them. "Something you'd like to share with the class, Cadet?" Grizz, emboldened by frustration, straightened to his full height. "This training is inefficient. Our combat simulations show that modern warfare requires minimal physical exertion. Technology handles the demands." Ramirez's weathered face broke into a predatory grin. "Really? Okay, class, thanks to our friend here, everyone on the log lines. Let's see how technology handles good old-fashioned teamwork." The log lines were perhaps the most primitive exercise the Zerians had encountered. Teams of 6 candidates had to carry heavy logs through a series of maneuvers, requiring coordination, strength, and most importantly, cooperation. The Zerians were placed on different teams, forced to work with human candidates. Commander V found himself in the middle position, trying to match his movements to the humans before and behind him. Up. Down. Press. Overhead. The commands came rapidly, and the Zerians quickly discovered that their superior individual strength meant nothing without synchronization. "Your pace is off, Commander," the human behind V grunted. "Match my footsteps, not the other way around." For the first time in his distinguished military career, Commander V found himself struggling to follow rather than lead. The human candidates, despite their inferior strength, moved with practiced unity that the Zerians couldn't match. As the sun set on their first day, the aliens retreated to their designated quarters, their environmental suits badly in need of maintenance. Lieutenant Zarl began running diagnostics while Commander V composed his initial report to the Council. Day 1 observations: human training methodology appears deliberately archaic, focusing on group cohesion over individual excellence. Their insistence on performing tasks in the most physically demanding way possible seems counterintuitive, yet serves some purpose we have yet to fully grasp. Cadet Grizz, usually the most vocal, sat silently maintaining his suit. Finally, he spoke. "Commander, I've been analyzing our performance. We're stronger, faster, and more durable than any human here. Yet they're outperforming us. How? V's skin shifted through patterns of deep thought. They're teaching us something, Cadet. Something their historical records couldn't convey. The question is, what? In the instructor's office, Briggs reviewed the day's footage with his team. Thoughts? Ramirez leaned back in his chair. They're strong as hell, sir. But they've never been uncomfortable a day in their lives. Those suits regulate everything, temperature, humidity, even their hormone levels. They don't know how to deal with real discomfort. Good, Briggs nodded. Tomorrow we start swimming qualifications. Let's see how their advanced technology handles 30 feet of dark water. The next morning arrived too quickly for the Zerians, their suits still showing signs of wear from the previous day. As they assembled on the beach, Instructor Martinez approached with an unsettling smile. Today, gentlemen, we swim. Hope those fancy suits of yours are waterproof to 50 feet. Commander V's skin rippled with concern. This, he realized, was only the beginning. The humans weren't just testing their physical capabilities, they were systematically stripping away every technological advantage the Zerians possessed. As the candidates lined up for their first ocean evolution, V received a priority message from the Council: continue observations. Initial data suggests humans possess unprecedented adaptation capabilities. Full understanding critical for future relations. V looked at the churning ocean before them, then at the determined faces of the human candidates. Perhaps, he realized, there was more to learn here than the Council had anticipated. The real lessons were just beginning. Hell Week begins. Sunday evening arrived with an eerie calm at Naval Amphibious Base Coronado. The Zerian officers had survived 2 weeks of increasingly demanding training, their environmental suits modified daily to cope with new challenges. But nothing had prepared them for what came next. The air split with the deafening explosion of flashbang grenades. Smoke filled the barracks as instructors stormed in, metal trash cans clanging against every surface. Get up. Get out. You have 30 seconds. Commander V's neural enhancers struggled to compensate for the sensory overload. Beside him, Cadet Grizz's skin had turned a sickly pale color, his third eye blinking rapidly in confusion. Welcome to Hell Week, ladies. Instructor Ramirez's voice cut through the chaos. For the next 5.5 days, you'll average 2 hours of sleep total. You'll be cold, wet, and miserable. Many of you will quit. His eyes locked onto the aliens. And some of you will learn what you're really made of. Lieutenant Zarl activated their private communication channel. Commander, our suit's power reserves weren't fully recharged. We're operating at 82% efficiency. They planned this, V responded, his skin shifting patterns of dark realization. They've been studying our limitations as much as we've been studying theirs. The first evolution of Hell Week was a simple run to the beach. Simple, except for the 300-pound inflatable boat each team had to carry over their heads. The Zerians were split up again, forced to coordinate with human team members whose stamina had grown impressive over the past weeks. 4 hours later, soaked in the cold Pacific surf, Commander V made a disturbing discovery. His suit's temperature regulation was failing, forcing his body to handle thermal regulation naturally for the first time in his adult life. The sensation was primitive. "How you holding up, Commander?" asked Petty Officer Chen, one of the human candidates who'd been quietly excelling. "You're looking a little blue there. And I don't mean your normal blue." V's vocal synthesizer crackled with moisture as he responded. "Our technology, it appears less adapted to sustained environmental stress than anticipated." Chen grinned through chattering teeth. "Yeah, that's the point. SEAL training isn't about being the strongest or having the best gear. It's about continuing when everything, your body, your mind, even your equipment, is telling you to stop." Hour after hour, evolution after evolution, the instructors pushed them beyond what either species considered possible. Log carries through soft sand. Underwater, not tying in the murky depths. Miles of sugar cookie runs where they'd get wet, roll in the sand, and run until the friction wore through their clothes, or in the Zerians' case, the outer layer of their suits. By Tuesday, Cadet Grizz's youthful arrogance had been replaced by something the humans recognized, the 1,000-yard stare of someone approaching their limits. During a rare 4-minute water break, he approached Commander V. "Sir," his voice trembled, "my neural enhancers are shutting down to prevent systemic failure. I don't know if I can continue without them." Before V could respond, Captain Briggs materialized beside them, his presence as commanding as ever despite having been awake as long as the candidates. "Problem, Cadet." Grizz straightened, his pride warring with his exhaustion. "Our technology, it's not designed for this level of sustained stress. Without our enhancers, we're..." "You're what?" Briggs challenged. "Vulnerable? Limited? Human?" He stepped closer. "That's exactly where we need you to be." Lieutenant Zarl, overhearing, moved to defend his fellow officer, but Briggs continued. "You came here thinking you'd prove your superiority. Instead, you're learning what every SEAL candidate discovers: technology fails. Bodies fail. Plans fail. What matters is what you do next." A whistle blast cut through the air. Instructor Martinez's voice followed, "Boat crews. In the water." As they struggled with their boats in the sunset surf, Commander V experienced something unprecedented. His suit's diagnostic system had failed completely, leaving him to rely solely on his natural senses. The cold bit deeper, the exhaustion felt heavier, but somehow, his awareness seemed sharper. Wednesday brought the dreaded, around-the-world, evolution, 2 miles of soft sand running, followed by 2 miles of swimming, then back to running. Halfway through, Lieutenant Zarl's suit suffered a catastrophic power failure. "Sir," he called to Commander V, "I need to withdraw. Without environmental regulation, the marine atmosphere could cause permanent damage." V looked at his officer, then at the human candidates pushing forward despite their own limitations. In that moment, he made a decision that would alter the course of their mission. "Remove your suit, Lieutenant." "Sir." "Remove it. All of you. We finish this as we are." The sight of 3 alien officers shedding their technological shells drew surprised looks from the instructors. Their natural forms were more vulnerable to Earth's atmosphere, but they were far from helpless. Well, Instructor Ramirez muttered to Briggs. "Looks like they're finally getting it." Thursday became a blur of pain and discovery. Without their suits, the Zerians experienced every sensation fully: the burn of salt water, the grip of exhaustion, the strange clarity that came with pushing beyond assumed limits. Cadet Grizz, who had been closest to quitting, found unexpected strength in his natural state. During a grueling log PT session, it was his voice that rallied his human teammates: "Together. Move together." The humans, for their part, adapted to working with their alien teammates' natural capabilities. They learned that Zerian physiology, while different, had its own strengths: extraordinary night vision, remarkable lung capacity, and surprising raw strength. As Friday dawn approached, bringing Hell Week's end in sight, Commander V gathered his officers during a brief rest period. Their skin, no longer masked by technology, displayed patterns of exhaustion and determination that needed no translation. "Council update?" Zarl asked, his voice hoarse from the salt air. V's 3 eyes focused on the horizon. "No update. Our communications failed 2 days ago." He paused. "But I believe we're learning more than they ever expected." Cadet Grizz, barely able to stand, managed a color pattern that approximated a smile. "Sir, do you think we were wrong? About humans being primitive?" Before V could answer, the whistle blew again. Captain Briggs's voice carried across the beach: "Last evolution, gentlemen. 4-mile timed run. Everyone finishes together, or no one finishes." As they lined up for the final challenge of Hell Week, human and alien candidates alike shared looks of understanding. They had entered this trial as separate species, superior and inferior, advanced and primitive. They would finish it as something else entirely. The sun rose over the Pacific as 30 voices, some human, some decidedly not, joined in the cadence call. They ran not as individuals showcasing their superiority, but as a unit discovering their shared strength. Hell Week was ending, but its real lessons were just beginning to sink in. Breaking points. The week following Hell Week brought a different kind of challenge. The Zerian officers, having survived what they'd considered impossible, found themselves in uncharted territory, both physically and psychologically. Their environmental suits, now repaired but rarely worn, lay mostly unused in their quarters. Commander V stood before the mirror in their assigned barracks, studying his natural form. The California sun had altered his skin patterns, creating new colors he'd never displayed before. More striking were the changes in his muscle structure, denser, more defined, adapted to Earth's higher gravity and constant physical demands. Fascinating, isn't it? Lieutenant Zarl entered, his own form showing similar modifications. Our bodies are adapting without technological assistance. The Council's xenobiologists would be beside themselves. If we could contact them, V replied. Their long-range communications had remained offline, a situation he was beginning to suspect wasn't entirely accidental. Captain Briggs found them during morning preparations, noting with approval their decision to continue training without their suits. Comfortable being uncomfortable yet? V's skin rippled with what had become his version of a grim smile. We're learning, Captain. Though I must admit, your training methods have proven illuminating. Good, Briggs nodded. Because today we start combat diving. Hope you aliens can hold your breath. The combat diving phase introduced new challenges that tested both species' limits. The Zerians discovered that while their natural lung capacity exceeded humans, the cold darkness of the ocean depths triggered primitive fears they'd thought long extinct. During their first 50-foot dive, Cadet Grizz experienced what the instructors called a panic attack, a concept alien to Zerian psychology. As his three eyes widened in primal fear, it was his human diving partner, Chen, who kept him from bolting to the surface. Focus on me, Chen's hand signals commanded, his calm presence anchoring Grizz in the darkness. Breathe slow. You're not alone. That evening, in a rare moment of vulnerability, Grizz sought out Commander V. Sir, I've been analyzing our experience here. We came to evaluate human military capabilities, but I'm beginning to think we fundamentally misunderstood what capability means. V, who'd been composing his latest report, now written on paper since their quantum computers remained mysteriously non-functional, gestured for Grizz to continue. Their strength isn't in their physical attributes or their primitive technology, Grizz explained, his skin patterns showing deep contemplation. It's in their ability to face failure repeatedly and continue. They expect things to go wrong. They train for it. While He paused, we've built our entire civilization around preventing failure through technology. Before V could respond, an alarm blared through the base. Instructor Martinez's voice followed, all candidates, muster up. Full gear, 5 minutes. They assembled in the darkness to find the instructors grim-faced. Captain Briggs stepped forward, his expression severe. Ladies and gentlemen, training is suspended. We have a real-world situation. A civilian vessel capsized 10 miles offshore in heavy seas. Local rescue can't reach them in these conditions. We're going in. The human candidates immediately began preparing equipment. The Zerians exchanged glances, their skin patterns showing confusion and concern. Sir, Lieutenant Zarl addressed Briggs, without our environmental suits, we're not rated for heavy sea operations. Briggs fixed him with a steady gaze. 6 lives are at risk, Lieutenant. Are you combat divers or not? The question hung in the air, heavy with meaning. Commander V felt the weight of the moment, this wasn't about evaluation anymore. This was about proving what they'd learned. "We're combat divers," V declared, his skin blazing with determination. "What's the plan?" The next hours tested everything both species had learned. Fighting 15-foot swells in pitch darkness, human and alien candidates worked in seamless pairs. Their differences became strengths, Zerian night vision guiding human strength, human experience complementing alien endurance. Commander V, paired with Chen, found himself navigating by instinct rather than technology. The ocean's chaos demanded immediate responses that no neural enhancer could calculate fast enough. For the first time in his military career, V understood why humans valued gut feelings over perfect data. The rescue operation succeeded, but not without cost. Both species pushed their bodies beyond safe limits. As they helped the last civilian aboard the rescue helicopter, Cadet Grizz collapsed, his system struggling to process the prolonged exposure to Earth's elements. In the medical bay, as doctors from both species worked to stabilize Grizz, V received an unexpected visitor. General Maddow entered quietly, observing the scene. "Your cadet showed incredible courage out there," Maddow commented. "All of you did." V's skin displayed patterns of concern and pride. He may have permanently damaged his atmospheric adaptation capabilities. The Council will consider this a significant setback. Will they? Maddow raised an eyebrow. Or will they recognize that he chose to risk everything to save lives he had no obligation to save? The question struck V like a physical blow. He realized that over the weeks of training, something fundamental had shifted. They had come to study human warfare but were learning about human nature instead. Later that night, as Grizz stabilized and the base quieted, V made a decision. He retrieved their repaired environmental suits and called Zarl and the recovering Grizz for a meeting. "Gentlemen," he began, "I believe we've been asking the wrong questions. We came to evaluate human military capability through their training. But their training isn't about creating superior warriors, it's about creating resilient ones." Zarl's skin showed patterns of agreement. The humans intentionally train under adverse conditions, without technological advantages. They're not trying to prevent failure, they're learning to overcome it. Exactly, V's patterns shifted to determination. "Which is why we're going to complete this training. Not for the Council's evaluation, but for ourselves." As if on cue, Instructor Ramirez appeared at their door. "Getting philosophical, are we?" He entered, carrying what looked like 3 sets of human combat gear. "Good. Because tomorrow we start close-quarters battle training, and you'll need these." "Human equipment?" Grizz asked, examining the gear. "But our suits." "Your suits work perfectly now," Ramirez interrupted. "Question is, do you need them?" The 3 Zerians exchanged looks, their skin patterns synchronized in understanding. One by one, they accepted the human gear. That night, Commander V added a final note to his report. Previous assessments of human military capability were based on quantifiable metrics: technology, strength, speed. "We failed to measure what may be their greatest military asset, the ability to adapt, to trust, to continue when all logical analysis suggests surrender. We came to teach them about advanced warfare. Instead, they are teaching us about advanced humanity." As they prepared for sleep, a message finally came through from the Council: assessment period extended. Continue training. Final evaluation criteria modified. V smiled, knowing the Council was beginning to understand what he already had. Sometimes the most advanced solution was the most primitive one, the willingness to face challenge not with technology, but with raw determination and trust in those beside you. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but for the first time, the Zerians would face them not as superior beings studying primitives, but as warriors learning from warriors. Final test and resolution. The final week of BUD/S approached with an atmosphere of anticipation. The remaining candidates, 15 humans and 3 Zerians, had transformed over their months of training. Commander V, Lieutenant Zarl, and Cadet Grizz moved with a fluid confidence that had nothing to do with neural enhancement and everything to do with earned capability. 24 hours remain, Captain Briggs addressed the group. One final test stands between you and graduation. But first, our alien friends have visitors. A shimmer in the air announced the arrival of a Zerian diplomatic vessel. 3 council members materialized on the beach, their environmental suits gleaming with the latest technology. Their skin patterns showed shock at the sight of their officers standing unprotected in Earth's atmosphere. High Council Member Zarl stepped forward, her translucent skin rippling with concern. Commander V, explain your condition. Our monitors show total technological disconnection. Are you being held against your will? V exchanged glances with his fellow trainees, both human and Zerian, before responding. No, Council Member. We chose this. To understand human military capability, we had to experience their methods as they do. Unacceptable, another council member declared. You've compromised your enhanced capabilities. The data suggests your bodies have undergone primitive adaptations. This violates multiple protocols. Captain Briggs stepped forward, his presence drawing all eyes. With respect, what they've gained far outweighs what they've temporarily set aside. Why don't you stick around and see for yourself? The final test was a scenario that combined everything they'd learned, a 30-mile coastal insertion, underwater navigation through caves, and a hostage rescue operation. Teams would be mixed, human and Zerian working together. The council members watched from their protected observation post as their officers paired up with human partners. Commander V with Chen, Zarl with Martinez, and Grizz with a female candidate named Rodriguez. Begin. Briggs commanded. What followed was a demonstration that left even the council speechless. The teams moved with synchronized precision that transcended species. When their night vision gear failed in the caves, the Zerians' natural abilities led the way. When raw strength was needed to breach barriers, humans took point. But the real revelation came during the hostage scenario. The teams encountered an unexpected change. The hostages were in a chamber flooded with toxic gas. The human candidate's equipment could handle it, but the Zerians would be exposed. Without hesitation, Commander V removed his rebreather and handed it to a hostage. Sir. Chen protested. The atmosphere is survivable for 17 minutes, V replied, his skin showing calm determination. More than enough time if we move fast. Trust me. The council members watched in astonishment as their officers deliberately exposed themselves to hostile conditions, coordinating perfectly with their human counterparts to complete the mission. Not just completing it, excelling at it. Hours later, as medical teams treated the Zerians for atmospheric exposure, High Council Member Zarl approached Captain Briggs. I must admit, Captain, we drastically misunderstood the purpose of your training. We thought you were teaching warfare. You're teaching something far more fundamental. Briggs nodded. The most advanced technology in the universe is useless if the warrior wielding it breaks under pressure. We don't just train their bodies, we transform their understanding of what's possible. The graduation ceremony was unlike any in naval special warfare history. As the sun set over the Pacific, 23 candidates, 18 human and 3 Zerian, stood at attention. Their differences were still visible, but they stood with the same quiet confidence, the same earned pride. Commander V stepped forward to address both his fellow graduates and the assembled dignitaries from both worlds. We came here to evaluate human military capabilities, his voice carried across the beach. Our initial analysis suggested that humans were primitive warriors relying on outdated methodologies. We were wrong. He gestured to his fellow graduates. These humans don't train to prevent failure, they train to overcome it. They don't rely on technology to avoid challenges, they use challenges to improve themselves. Most importantly, they understand something our civilization had forgotten: true strength comes not from avoiding weakness, but from confronting it. The council members' skin patterns showed deep contemplation as V continued. The Zerian Empire spans 17 solar systems. We have technology that would seem like magic to most humans. But these past months have taught us that advancement isn't just about technology. It's about the heart that drives it, the will that deploys it, and the wisdom to know when not to use it at all. General Maddow stepped forward, carrying not just the traditional seal tridents, but 3 specially crafted variants designed for Zerian physiology. By the power vested in me, he began, then paused with a slight smile, and with the agreement of both our governments, I hereby designate you all as the first joint human Zerian Special Operations Unit. The implications weren't lost on anyone present. This wasn't just a graduation, it was the beginning of a new chapter in both species' history. Later that night, at a celebration that mixed military tradition with interstellar diplomacy, Captain Briggs found Commander V standing alone, watching the ocean. Having second thoughts about returning to your technology? Briggs asked. V's skin rippled with amusement. On the contrary. I'm thinking about how to integrate what we've learned here into our own training programs. The Council has already approved the construction of a joint training facility. Going to make your own warriors suffer like we do? No, V replied, his patterns showing deep conviction. We're going to teach them what you taught us, that true strength isn't about having the best technology or the most advanced capabilities. It's about having the will to continue when all those advantages are stripped away. As if to emphasize his point, a group of newly graduated SEALs, human and Zerian alike, began the traditional post-graduation celebration, charging into the cold Pacific waters together. The Council wants to know if this joint program will succeed, V continued, watching the scene. They want metrics, probabilities, statistical analyses. Briggs smiled. And what will you tell them? Commander V's skin displayed a pattern that any human would recognize as pride mixed with determination. I'll tell them what every SEAL knows, the only easy day was yesterday. And that's exactly how it should be. As the celebrations continued into the night, the beaches of Coronado bore witness to something unprecedented. 2 species that had begun as teacher and student, superior and primitive, now stood as equals. They had discovered that the greatest lessons of warfare had nothing to do with technology or tactics, but with the eternal truths of courage, resilience, and the unbreakable bonds forged in shared adversity. The stars above seemed to shine a little brighter, perhaps acknowledging that on this small planet, in this simple training program, something remarkable had been achieved. The future of both species would never be the same. And somewhere in the darkness, an instructor's whistle blew, followed by a familiar call, hit the surf. Without hesitation, every warrior present, human and alien alike, responded as one, Huya. Some traditions, it seemed, were truly universal.